Good evening, my dear listeners. I'm Jay Sarastro. Picture this as we enter the darkened halls of an ancient estate, eerily silent, save for the echoes of long-forgotten secrets. Here we find seat near the flames of the fireplace where we settle in for another nighttime tale from the dusk-dawn intersect. Adele, a renowned artist and beloved singer, had always maintained a well-crafted image of tranquility. However, beneath her serene exterior, she had long been fascinated by the supernatural. A curiosity, one might say, that grew more insistent after the passing of a dear friend. Perhaps it was the void left in her heart that drew her to the whispers of haunted places, old mansions, and ghost stories that permeated the corners of our world, unseen but felt. And so, when an opportunity presented itself, an invitation to stay in a mansion rumored to be cursed, Adele could not resist. After all, what is life without a little mystery? What is the allure of the unknown, if not the allure of discovery? But as the clock struck midnight on the first evening of her stay, the chill in the air began to take on a more foreboding tone. She had, after all, hired a security guard, a burly man named James, who was no stranger to the strange and macabre. He came highly recommended, his years of experience working at the local museum, where artifacts of the occult were often stored, making him the ideal choice. He was, in many ways, Adele's shield against whatever the mansion had to offer, should it prove to be more than mere superstition. James had been quiet upon their arrival, a man of few words. He had perhaps seen too many things in his time to offer much comfort, especially in the face of what they were about to confront. He assured Adele that nothing would befall her while he was around. But did he know something she did not? Did he, too, sense that this mansion was more than the sum of its rooms? On the second night, it began. Adele, deep in the solitude of her large bedroom, heard the faintest of whispers, soft, like the rustle of leaves in the dead wind. Her eyes shot open, heart pounding, for she could swear she heard her name. Adele! It came from somewhere near the window, but no one was there. The curtains, drawn tight against the cold, shifted slightly as if touched by unseen hands. The breath caught in her throat. Imagine the chilling sensation of someone or something standing just behind her. Adele turned, and for a moment the world seemed to twist, reality warping like a reflection in broken glass. The first night's disturbances were nothing compared to what followed. In the halls of the mansion, strange figures began to appear in the mirrors. Figures she could not quite make out, except for their piercing eyes, always watching her. The floorboards creaked as if someone invisible walked just beyond the edges of her vision. Shadows stretched in unnatural ways, lengthening with no clear cause. James, meanwhile, took his position seriously, but as the days wore on, his confidence waned. The once strong man had begun to show signs of distress. Late one evening, when Adele called him to her room after hearing sounds from the attic, James entered with a look of quiet terror in his eyes. "I heard it too," he confessed, his voice cracking slightly. I could see it now. James standing at the base of a staircase, his flashlight flickering like a dying star, casting long shadows upon the walls as they descended into the darkened, musty attic. There, a Among the dust and cobwebs was a mirror unlike any Adele had seen before. The glass was not clear but fogged, swirling with a mist that seemed to have a life of its own. It was from this very mirror that the whispers had come. The voices, pleading, taunting, calling her name. It was clear to Adele that something had changed within her. Before the mansion, she had been devout, holding tight to her faith, believing in the power of prayer and the protection of her beliefs. But now, as she stood in the presence of something so otherworldly, she felt the ground beneath her beliefs start to shift. Could her faith save her from what lurked here? Or had she, perhaps, awakened something that should have remained forgotten? The final night would reveal the truth. As they ventured further into the mansion's bowels, the walls began to close in. The air grew thick, stifling, as if the house itself were holding its breath. The mirror that had haunted Adele now hung on the far wall of an old decrepit parlor, its surface churning like the waters of a storm. Figures, tall and shrouded in mist, moved within its depths. One by one, they stepped into reality. And there, amid the spirits of the lost, Adele would face the darkest parts of herself, her deepest fears. Picture this: the cold fingers of spectral hands reaching out for her, pulling her into the very depths of the mansion's haunted past. In the final, desperate moments of terror, Adele's religious beliefs would undergo a transformation. No longer was it a question of belief in the unseen. It was now a matter of survival, of holding on to the vestiges of the light that had once guided her. She would turn to prayer, not for comfort, but for strength. Just think, a room now suffocating with shadows, the air so thick it clung to her skin like cold tar. Adele's heart thundered in her chest, drowning out the whispered voices that had only grown louder. The mansion, with its time-worn grandeur, was now alive with an unholy energy, its walls seemingly pulsating with every footstep they took. James, ever the stoic figure, moved ahead, his flashlight trembling in his hands as it flickered sporadically. "Stay close," James whispered, though his voice trembled with a fear Adele had never heard of him before. Picture this, his hand gripping the flashlight so tightly his knuckles whitened, his face pale in the dim light. Adele could see the terror in his eyes, but she, too, was no longer certain of her own ability to stand against of whatever it was that haunted this place. They stepped into the parlor, the heavy curtains drawn back, revealing the moonlight filtering through the grimy windows. The mirror, cold and malevolent, hung before them, its surface swirling as though an ancient storm had trapped itself inside. The figures within the glass were no longer mere outlines. They had become tangible, reaching out from within, their hands stretching as though they too were desperate to escape the prison of the mirror. Adele's breath caught her throat. One figure, the tallest, stepped forward, his face still a blur of motion. But the eyes, those were unmistakable. They were hers. They were her own reflection. "What is this?" Adele murmured, her voice trembling. She took a step back, but it felt as though the very room had drawn her forward. She could not escape the pull of the mirror. James, now visibly shaken, took a step forward to the mirror, his own breath ragged. He reached out, almost without thinking, as though compelled by something beyond his understanding. "No!" Adele cried out, but it was too late. As his fingers touched the surface of the mirror, a violent force yanked him forward. The scream that tore from his throat was one of pure terror, like a man drowning in the very air around him. James' body suddenly lifted from the floor, his limbs flailing as he was dragged towards the mirror's depths, a figure of agony caught in the grip of unseen hands. Adele rushed forward, heart pounding, but the forces at play in this cursed room were stronger than she had anticipated. Desperation filled her soul. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face as she whispered prayers, her voice trembling. Lord, please, protect us. Deliver us from this evil. The room seemed to mock her plea. The wind howled through the walls as the mirror's surface rippled once more, revealing figures beyond counting. Ghosts of the past, the lost souls who had met their doom within this very mansion. Adele, alone now in the heart of the haunted parlor, facing down the very horrors that had claimed so many before her. She gripped the amulets that had been a gift from her late grandmother, a symbol of protection she had worn since childhood. But in the face of these horrors, did even her faith stand a chance? In that moment, something changed within her. She could feel the power of the prayers she uttered taking root, a strength beyond the mortal coil surging within her veins. She rose to her feet, steadying herself despite the overwhelming fear, and for the first time, Adele spoke with a conviction that echoed like the voice of a prophet. I will not let you claim me. A great, terrible silence followed her words. The shadows in the room seemed to hesitate, as if her defiance had caused them to falter. The figures in the mirror swirled violently, their faces twisting in rage. And then, as if by some divine intervention, the ground beneath her feet trembled. A blinding flash of light filled the room, casting the spirits back into the mirror. Adele's heart stopped as the force of it knocked her back. The mirror cracked, a sound like thunder ringing in her ears before it shattered completely, the glass falling to the floor in 1,000 glittering shards. When the light finally faded, the room fell silent. The temperature returned to normal. The oppressive weight lifted. James, his clothes torn but his body intact, lay unconscious on the floor but alive. Adele rushed to his side, lifting him with trembling hands. The house was still eerily so. The malevolent presence had been vanquished, but Adele knew this was not the end of her ordeal. They escaped the mansion that night, the moonlight guiding their way. The cold wind at their backs seemed to whisper something, perhaps a warning or perhaps a final farewell. But Adele was no longer the same. The girl who once held firm to her beliefs in the unseen world now understood the darkness in a way she had never wished to. She had seen the horrors that lay beyond the veil, and her faith, once simple and unyielding, now felt like a fragile thing in the face of such overwhelming evil. She never spoke of the mansion again, not to her fans or friends. But the changes were undeniable. She became more introspective, her faith more complex. No longer a shield against the world, but a weapon forged in the fires of her experience. And when she looked into the mirror, it was no longer her own face she saw, but something far more ancient. And James? He disappeared shortly after. No one knew what became of him, though rumors spread that he had left the city, unable to shake the horrors he had witnessed. Some say he vanished entirely, while others claim he found solace in a remote village, far from the memories of the mansion. As for the mansion, it remains, crumbling and forgotten by most, but some still say its spirit lingers, waiting for the next soul, brave or foolish enough to walk its halls. What do you think happened to Adele after her harrowing encounter in the haunted mansion? Did she truly escape unscathed? Or did the darkness follow her? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. And if you're brave enough, tell us about your own ghostly experiences. We're listening. That does it for tonight, friends. Please remember to like and subscribe for more tales from the dark side of music history. This is the Dusk Dawn Intersect.